Communication is a two-way process of sending and receiving information. In air traffic control, the sender can send a message verbally, non-verbally, or through strip marking. The receiver receives the information by listening and observing, then confirms the information to ensure that it has been clearly understood. The sender listens and observes to verify the receiver's understanding is accurate. Let's look at what experienced controllers have to say about different forms of communication.
The preciseness makes communication flow better. There's no room for ambiguity. Bad information will get you in trouble. Bad information will cause deviations, not only between airplanes, but into different airspaces.
The most common breakdown that I can see in communication is when someone says, "Did you point him out?" Well, who's him? Nobody knows who you're talking about, so not being specific enough, I guess, would be the major problem that I've encountered.
The things that can help the communication process between team members is just trying to keep them aware of what you're thinking, what your plans are with the sector.
There's nothing wrong with nonverbal communications, just as long as everybody's on the same page.
We've had an operational error where the question was from one radar controller to another one, can I descend this individual at this time? The other radar controller was on the line talking to somebody else, and he did this. Well, the aircraft, the other radar controller descended the airplane, and this meant keep him up. So we had an operational error.
You physically put your pen or your finger on this on another controller's scope to show him an aircraft, okay? And he's busy. Sometimes he'll shake his head, or you get a verbal response from him, approved, point out approved, something like that. So yes.
A lot of the communication is on the strips. If you mark everything you do on the strips, a lot of your coordinators, a lot of your radar controllers simply look at the strips to see if something was done. You can't spend the whole time saying, I did this, I did that, I did this, I did that, because the controller's talking to airplanes and has to listen for them as well as overhead calls on the radios. So a very important thing is marking the strips.
We've been talking about one aspect of the communication process, sending information. The receiver also plays an important part in good team communication. Effective listening involves paying attention to verbal and non-verbal messages. Sometimes the listener needs to confirm the message or ask questions to ensure that the sender and listener have the same understanding.
Once you get comfortable with the sector and you develop a little bit more experience at each sector, you learn to listen to not only what's coming through your headset, but what else is going on around you.
Good two-way team communication involves sending and receiving messages using different forms of communication. Effective verbal communication means that you're specific, speak clearly, watch how fast you talk, and let others know what you're doing or planning. Effective nonverbal communication is being sure your meaning is clear and getting confirmation. Effective strip marking is the use of standard markings while keeping strip marking up to date. And effective listening means paying attention, then verifying what you hear. It's also important to know when to communicate. For example, you need to know when to confirm that your message was heard and understood.
One thing that I like to stress is that make sure you get that head nod, or you poke them in the arm to make sure you both are understanding, and even if you have to repeat to say, now you understand that next sector wants him at this altitude or this heading, because if they don't, if one person understands one thing and the other understands something else, they can really have a lot of mistakes going on.
At other times, you'll need to speak up when you see a problem.
And a couple times, I just had no choice except, I didn't have time to be polite and diplomatic and, come up with the proper way to say things. But you say, did you point him out? Did you call traffic here? And 9 out of 10 times, the answer was yes. But I remember once I asked that of a radar controller, I said, is he going to miss him? And and he said, I don't know.
Knowing when to communicate also means relaying information in time for the other person to use that information effectively. However, controllers must be able to distinguish between critical and non-critical information and judge the best time to pass on the information. Critical information is needed immediately, but non-critical information may be held until an opportune moment so as not to overload a team member at a busy time.